An enduring global fuel crisis is rattling the global economy, throwing off balance economic analysts and policymakers. Here in Kenya, a government subsidy has managed to suppress fuel prices at the pump. And the question is, for how long can this hold? And will this impact or have a major impact on Kenya's taxation policies? Good morning and thank you very much for joining us. This is Basic. We are indeed live from Broadcasting House, and our conversation today will revolve around the Kenyan economy, the impact the fuel crisis is having on our country, as well as the political noise. Remember, we have about 19 days before we head to the polls, and the political noise is getting worse. The question is, who will Kenyans decide when they go to the poll? That is a question that we are waiting to see. Our reporters are on the ground. They are in a county near you, and of course, collecting news and views from you. We shall be crisscrossing over around the country to see exactly what they have. My name is O'Brien Kimani. At O'Brien Kimani is my Twitter handle, and at KBC is our Twitter handle. The conversation around the global fuel prices is coming up next, right after this. Good, welcome to these broadcasts, and of course my guests are in the studio. We want to have a conversation around the global fuel prices or crisis, the kind of impact it is having on the Kenyan economy, as well as our taxation measures, and the I wouldn't want to say threat, but the other day you heard the National Treasury saying that these fuel subsidies are becoming unsustainable because, number one, it was not budgeted for, and it is redirecting taxes to other areas that will not be considered to be productive for the economy. And so the National Treasury is of the opinion that it is high time we reevaluate our fuel subsidy going forward. Mwendi Nyaga is the CEO of Oil and Energy Center, is now joining us here on BizCheck. Thank you very much indeed, Mwendi, for joining us. Oh, and he is the former Managing Director or CEO of National Oil Corporation of Kenya.
Happy to be here, Brian.
Nice to see you. And we have Delano Kilu. He is a security and policy analyst. He's a regular face on this show. Thank you very much indeed, Delano, for your time.
Thank you.
Very good. And gentlemen, you are telling me that you indeed have a Twitter handle, and I want to start with you. What is the Twitter handle?
At Mwendi Nyaga.
At Mwendi Nyaga. And
very simple, Brian. At Delano Kilu.
At Delano Kilu. You can get to this man using that Twitter handle. And I want to start with you, Mwendi Nyaga. I mean, this is becoming such a crisis, and nobody has an idea when it is going to end. From where you sit or from your projections, do you see the situation getting better or worse?
I see the situation either remaining the same for some time or getting worse before it gets better.
Getting worse before it gets better.
Yes. I mean, reason being, we all know what's going on in Europe at the moment, with Russia in Ukraine and the attacks going on, the sanctions that are affecting Russia, making Russia's oil not be able to flow internationally the way it was doing before the war. And that has created some sort of an artificial shortage. Now, this shortage is obviously being covered through some kind of exchanges where Russia's oil is flowing to where it never used to go before, and some other oil is then starting to go to Europe where Russia's oil was going. But as all this is happening, the world oil demand is increasing, and supply is not increasing from the other quarters as fast as it should. So as we think that the Russia-Ukraine crisis is the only problem we actually do have another problem in that if you look at OPEC Plus in general, they are today not being able to meet the quotas that they have allocated to each other. So they are producing less than they would like to be producing today. That is a hidden crisis which is being hidden by the Russia-Ukraine crisis, and that is what might cause the issues to become worse before they become better. Of course, we also do know that Russia appears to be retaliating against what the West is doing. And restricting some flow of gas into Europe, especially, which Europe relies on very, very strongly. So the energy crisis in Europe is real.
45% of European gas is from
Russia, exactly.
Through the Nord Stream.
Through the Nord Stream pipeline. And so as this happens, then Europe itself is digging deeper into the energy crisis that has been there from the second half of 2021. So with all these things at play, and the war still going on, it may get worse before it gets better.
It may get worse before it gets better. Do you agree with him that the situation is likely to get even worse before somehow we see some rays of sunshine?
Generally, for the world at large, O'Brien, of course, the situation globally is not a good situation, and the trend currently is going downwards. However, for Kenya, there's a big difference, and that is because we are in transition. As a nation state, we're actually in transition, and we are actually the proud recipients of a great amount of goodwill and favor. I would almost say favor with the king, because right now, Kenya is attracting huge amounts of currency investments from outside, and that turns the whole scenario on top of its head. Although from a natural standpoint, historically, we can say that Kenya has been very reliant on import products for all of its, almost all of its energy resources with regards to crude oil, with refined products, etc. We are at a stage now where we need to wake up. I would actually say, O'Brien, that Kenya has come of age. And you know that an heir, as long as he's a child, no matter what the wealth of the family is, an heir can just be a child. It's under stewardship of other people. But Kenya as a nation state has now come of age and is about to step into a place where, from an energy perspective, we can now begin to tap into what is really rightfully ours. Kenya, as we all know, does have oil reserves. The challenges have been that, you know, with our oil reserves, we have never been able to truly tap them commercially. And one of the reasons is because the cost of tapping into these resources is humongous. Apart from that, there are so many other bureaucratic, legislative, and even judicial challenges that come together with the current existing oil blocks that have been allocated. Oil blocks, as you know, are allocated with a production sharing contract, which is signed together with government. And government then enables that particular investor who's investing into the oil sector to go and do a particular number of surveys and come back with the results. And then within a period of 3 years, they should be able to show tangibly that they can get into commercial production. Now, with that commercial production aspect, we as a country have never really crossed that barrier. And I think, O'Brien, the time has come right now for Kenya to become very globally competitive. We need to step up the pace. We're very good at athletics. We step out, and I can speak on authority as a board member of Kenya Olympians Association. We step out onto the field athletically to compete against the whole world. We don't really care whether it's Russia or the United States. We compete and we win and we take the gold medals. But we've never really tried to compete globally as far as energy production is concerned. And I think this is one of the things that we need to remove the blinders.
But it's because we are not an energy superpower.
I don't think there is such a thing as an energy superpower.
Russia is.
It is actually, if you compare resources right now, this is something that perhaps members of the fourth estate need to exegete a little more for us to be able to understand. And Wendy, our dear former CEO of NOC, can actually explain it to you that the countries that are actually superpowers in terms of energy production are places like Iran and Saudi Arabia, Those are the guys who are holding global resources. From an OPEC perspective, if they say then everything changes. And you can imagine, because a nation like Iran is a $1.7 trillion economy. It's on par with Russia. Russia is just $1.8 trillion economy. So, but if you go to places like Iran, for example, O'Brien, right now, if you go to Iran, their petrol is actually retailing at the pump at below 7 Kenya shillings per liter. Their kerosene is below 50 cents per liter. And their diesel is just around about the same price.
So are you of the opinion that these ongoing fuel crisis is superficial?
Very, and I think already Mwendia actually alluded to that. There are two things here. Once you become an oil-producing nation, then you get the benefit of what we call the upstream, a force, because then you are actually producing and other people are buying your products. What happens is on the downstream with the oil marketers and the cost of production and the cost of distribution, we then end up on the other side of the spectrum, where we are now being forced as Kenyans to pay more than 140 shillings per liter of petrol. And that is the untenable situation.
159 actually.
And you see, you're very precise on that.
He's using diesel.
And that
He's using diesel.
He's talking about diesel.
Actually, diesel is a driver of economies. Are you aware that, you know, all the products and goods that are being transported around not only Kenya but the region are mostly being transported?
Even industries are powered by diesel.
By diesel. So diesel is a very important factor. And that's the difference between countries, say, for example, like Egypt and Nigeria. Nigeria, diesel is currently retailing at 190 shillings per liter.
And they're the biggest producer in Africa.
They're producing a lot of fuel. Their petrol is 50 shillings, but their diesel is 190 because they have to.
Then Dilano, we must agree. I mean, then being an oil and a gas producer is not a guarantee that the same is going to be cheaper in your country, right?
Actually, it's different because you don't just produce the product. You need to produce and refine the product on site.
And that is a capacity that Nigeria doesn't have.
Nigeria is not refining its own product. It's just exporting crude, a lot of crude. Of course, right now we know that Aliko Dangote and the rest are setting up this huge refinery. But if you take the comparative estimate, I like to stay in Africa instead of just staying out there in Iran. If you look at the comparative estimate, look at countries, for example, like Egypt, where you do have diesel that is retailing at below 50 shillings per liter. So what they're doing is they're enabling the economy, their transport sector, and their other industries to be very, very vibrant and strong and driven. If you look at Ethiopia also, it's also ensured that the price of diesel is very, very low.
Through subsidies.
So we look at this and we actually discover that energy drives the planet. You know, somebody once said love makes the world go round, but the energy is not too far behind.
You want to respond to this, eh?
Yeah, but first maybe energy makes love go round.
Energy makes love go round.
Exactly, because without energy, there's nothing much that we are going to do. Our bodies are driven by energy as well. But, you know, coming to, I would make a few comments about, in regard to what Delano has said. And one of them is in regard to Kenya's position. He said Kenya is an energy superpower. I would perhaps have a yes and no. The no being that today petroleum is contributing a very significant proportion of the total energy supply for Kenya. I think the last I checked, it was somewhere between 60 and 70%, if not above 70 actually. So other than petroleum, the other sources of energy that we are using right now are sources like biomass, for example, which is not a modern energy that we use in the modern economy. We are using the biomass in perhaps the more traditional economies, you know, the domestic and all. However, as he says, we have an opportunity to exploit some petroleum resources that we do have in Kenya today. So God has blessed us with that. If we could exploit that, then there would be some significant benefit from the savings that would arise because we will not have to expend our foreign exchange to the levels that we are spending. Today we are spending something close to 30% of our foreign exchange,
which is about $1 trillion
on petroleum imports. Exactly. And that's a significant number. However, On the other, maybe even bigger strength is Kenya's ability to generate energy from renewable sources. You're probably aware that today, as we sit here, Kenya is generating up to 90% of its energy today from renewable sources, be it from the traditional hydropower stations to geothermal, which is has been growing very, very steadily and very, very well, to solar and wind. In fact, Kenya is a leader in Africa in both wind and geothermal as we speak today. So that itself places Kenya in a situation where the continued reliance on petroleum is something that can be transitioned out of without us saying we don't have a way out. Why do I say this? I checked actually only last week, of the 7 million metric tons of petroleum that we are importing into Kenya today, where is it being used? And interestingly, Brian, 80% of it is being used in transport.
In the cars that we drive every day.
In the cars that we drive every day. So when you look at the global transition of going into mobile, into electric mobility, as it is being referred to, it just shows that with time, actually Kenya doesn't even have to make very significant effort. We're importing all the vehicles that we're using here right now, and anything we set up new in Kenya for the purpose of assembly can have the electrical mobility already in mind in terms of the design and what that plant is going to produce. So in which case, if you transformed our transport sector from petroleum to electric and then feed it from the renewable energy that Kenya is generating, literally from God-given free-flowing resources like water, like steam, there's the sun and the wind. Then we would have entered energy transition faster than anybody can actually imagine for a country in the developing world. So that is a strength which we can make good use of.
And so I want to pose this question to Dilano. I mean, when you look at our total import cost, and this is a significant amount of money. 30% of our total cost goes into oil. Yet Mwenda has just outlined some of the benefits, some of the resources that we can tap into and even reduce this cost of import. So how comes we haven't seen a strong policy drive towards ensuring that we transition from an oil-driven economy to a renewable energy-driven economy?
This is because, O'Brien, policy is dictated by historical data, which is driven by statisticians, and statisticians give us that policy data, and that is then bureaucratically or administratively dissected and digested by the various line ministries. Whereas what we need right now is visionaries, and this is one of the reasons why I highly recommend people like Mwenda Nyaga are appointed to superior positions to drive Kenya's visionary aspects of strategic innovation in terms of energy and energy production and the behavior of us as Kenyans.
Dilano is watching for you a position in government.
Yes, and I do that without any fear of contradicting myself, because what we need is no longer just policy. What we need is visionaries that actually go to implementation. If you look at Kenya Vision 2030, for example, granularly, right now our target for energy production, especially to do with electricity, much as we are very green in terms of energy production as a country, is we're looking at 7,000 megawatts, up from the current 3,000 megawatts that we're producing as a nation. What that means is that we are way behind even African statistics. Just for an example, the Vision 2030 for production of electrical energy in South Africa is 77,000 megawatts. So even if we achieve our target,
that is 10 times bigger than...
Yes, and their population is about 60 million, which is not far from ours, which is now, because of free maternity, is now approaching 55 million. We're doing very well in terms of that. So in terms of energy production, we are way below on the scale. And if you look at then the ability of South Africa to grow economically, that then transitions everything. And I like Mwenda's example of saying, look, we can actually transition to using electrical energy for transport, transportation and that sort of thing. Not only do we have the capability to manufacture the electric vehicles here, of course we need to just partner with a couple of industrial people who do this very well, like the South Koreans, etc. But we have the raw materials in plenty for all the electric batteries. We can actually do electric battery production here in Kenya and export the same to the rest of the world. So we do have advanced technologies. What we do need to do is leapfrog as far as electrical energy is concerned and start gaining the value benefit. And again, going back to that conversation that I said, Kenya must stop competing with itself. I know we are in an election period and everybody is really inwards focused, but Kenya needs to stand up like our athletes and go and compete against the rest of the world. In terms of electrical transition, look at what we missed a few years ago. The London Stock Exchange, and you know the value of the London Stock Exchange, was looking for a place to put its disaster recovery site as part of its business continuity plan, and they chose to do it on the continent of Africa. And they went through Africa, and they skipped Kenya simply because we're not producing enough clean, stable power. The word stable being very key. And they ended up at a place called Shwane, which is our former Pretoria, which is in South Africa. Why? Because of the energy statistics. South Africa producing about 50,000 megawatts and able to provide the grid power necessary. So if the London Stock Exchange fails, then it fails over out into South Africa. Now that is pure money, because that's an income stream of services that now South Africa is capturing. If you look at the rest of the production of South Africa, the power is pushing through its factories, its mining, etc., through electrical energy. This is one of the things that has enabled it to capture the African market. So South Africa, through its many corporations, telcos, MTN, if you look at supermarkets it tried in Africa, it didn't do very well in terms of supermarkets. But if you look at some of its other activities as South Africa, it captures its GDP from its regional spread and its capture of the African market. Now, Kenya, we should by now have Safaricom in at least half of the African countries. We should by now be pushing some of our products much further than they go. And you know, you'll go to countries like Zimbabwe, you'll find Blue Band from here selling on their shelves, and they like it very much. So the only thing that we've not been as a country is bold enough to step out, increase our production, increase our output, lower the cost of electrical production or electricity, lower it to manageable level. And of course, if you look at even the cost of electricity, remember there's always that fuel adjustment cost that you see on your monthly bill.
Including inflation as well.
Including all those. So that's what actually transitions the nation. But
I mean, you know, your point is very vivid here, and there has been this conversation around, you know, transitioning from a fossil fuel-driven economy, you know, into an electrical energy-driven economy. What would be the cost to that?
Again, like I've stated, most of the petroleum that we are using in Kenya is on the transportation sector. There's of course, quite a bit that's being used in the industrial, especially the fuel oil and heavy diesel oil, and the balance is LPG in the homesteads. So for me, I would use the 80-20 rule, that if I focus on this sector that is consuming 80% of the petroleum, then that is also going to drive what comes next. And so I would focus on the petroleum sector and start asking myself, what are the initiatives that need to be put in place to start encouraging more people? And note that I use the word more, because when I drive into the well on Langata Road, I find electric cars charging outside the mall. When I drive into the hub, I find electric cars charging into the mall. So already there are people installing charging stations for electric vehicles at some certain places. Obviously, those are not for public use. They are probably for very specific quasi-private use. But I would start thinking then, what initiatives do we need to have? And I know there are discussions already going on in some quarters. I attended a meeting at the Strathmore University the other day that was literally discussing on how electrical mobility can be accelerated in this country. Do you discuss with the county governments, for example, which can designate some certain parkings for electric vehicles and cause private sector to come in and install charging stations, and at the same time negotiate with the power supply company to give a specific tariff for this. Can we extend that, for example, to domestic, that when you install an electric charging station outside your house, then you could have a special tariff for that. That continues to encourage this. And of course, there is the fiscal discussions that are going on. From the point of view of maybe electric cars as they stand right now could be somewhat more expensive than the petroleum vehicles. But we all know how much the saving would be once you have that car on board. So two things again, some fiscal incentive on the import duties and VAT side, and at the same time you come back to look at the people who are selling. What are the kind of terms of sale? I had in the same meeting at Strathmore somebody saying that their plan is to see if they could provide you with a vehicle at the price that you could have paid for a petroleum-driven vehicle, and then the balance you pay in a schedule that kind of compares with how much are you saving by converting to electric energy from the petroleum. So and I think once you finish thinking about that, then you have to immediately come back and think, what do I do with trucks? Because trucks the world is still somehow, the trucks are somewhere behind the passenger vehicles, but they're starting to hit the road. So we also now have to start thinking of electric trucks and the massive charging stations along the highways, and how do these get taken care of. I believe that the technology is also developing fast enough to get us to have batteries that would charge faster and retain the energy longer. But
don't you think then, this is now where we invest in railway infrastructure, and instead of having locomotives that are driven by diesel, then we electrify the railway lines? Because the railway sector is ahead when it comes to, electrical railway systems.
That's certainly a big part of the solution, Brian, in that, we have our SGR now. What would it take to electrify the SGR? That gets more trucks off the road. I know, well, it gets a few more people out of business, but makes the overall business environment so much better. And so that's part of the solution. But I also wanted to mention a new change that actually just became effective this 1st of July in regard to the age of the vehicles, especially trucks that you can import into Kenya. I think now it's been limited to 3 years old. And in 3 years' time, you can only bring a new one, or it's assembled here in Kenya. You see, as much as that has a negative effect from the affordability of the vehicle point of view, it also takes us on the cutting edge, literally, of the energy transition. Why? Because the world at that time will also have started making more and more electrically driven trucks. So, meaning that what we bring in at that time will be what has just been made. And what has just been made will be, in one way or another, complying with the energy transition requirements. Meaning, again, we go back to where I said earlier at the beginning that you transition the transportation sector. I like the railway angle. That so make the railway electric, put more stuff on the railway. Then all this electricity is coming from renewable sources. So Kenya becomes a leader. Well, it already is, albeit in a small scale. He mentioned the very small amount of electricity we are consuming compared to some other bigger countries in Africa. But Kenya becomes on the leading edge as far as the energy transition is concerned. And petroleum stops being as a big headache as it is right now.
Yeah, because honestly speaking, we have more developed economies that are really less concerned about, the ongoing global oil crisis. Countries like Switzerland, countries like Norway, that have really tapped into renewable energy, to power their economies. And so, Delano, from where you sit, when you look at our government or us as a country, are you convinced that, yes, we are moving towards, electrifying our economy through renewable sources?
We are moving. However, I want to be very clear. That is not the responsibility of government. Government is put in place by the people to be a steward of the people's wishes, so to speak, administratively, from a structural perspective, and from a judicial perspective, and an executive to guide the steering wheel. What that means is that, O'Brien, the government is there in order to structure what the people are doing, or the private sector. So Kenya's greatest asset currently is its people. And from a national security perspective, Kenya then protects those people. And part of the protection of those people is economic development, what we're actually talking about here from an aspect of energy. And economic development can only be fostered in the correct environment. That's again why it's so important, the kind of leaders that you put in place or bring to the table to speak on your behalf or to act on your behalf. So in terms of just securing the way forward, this has to be driven by the private sector. The question that you had posed to Mwendia slightly earlier, what is the cost of this? It's a huge investment. We're talking about massive investments. Those investments are not driven or are not generated from just our local resources. A nation, for example, like Switzerland, or a nation like what you've mentioned, Norway, Sweden, Finland, these guys have something called a sovereign fund. At the moment in Kenya, we were trying to structure a sovereign fund, which we didn't actually end up doing. However, fortunately for us, we are beneficiaries right now of great benefactors in terms of sovereign fund. So we are able to right now begin to talk with confidence, because there's huge investments that are coming in our direction, and primarily for a very simple reason. We're not in the position, like what Mwendia mentioned earlier, of a Russia-Ukraine war. You know, they normally say the good is the enemy of the best. And in this particular case, Kenya, which looked like all the risk directors globally were looking at Kenya from a negative perspective and saying that, you know, we're worried about Kenya, there was a little crime here in Nairobi, there was something else happening there, are now looking at Ukraine and the toll on infrastructure, the toll on human lives, and the war that is just decimating humanity, so to speak, and are beginning to realize, wait a minute, Kenya is a little slice of heaven here on earth. We have the beaches, we have wildlife, we have natural resources like what we've mentioned and alluded to. Kenya is a very green country. We also have deserts in the northeast and in the northwest. We have all kinds of landscapes. We have snowy mountains, Mount Kenya. We have rivers. We have the largest lake. We have so many resources that are actually available to us, but we're not really tapping into them. Now, the onus and responsibility for that tapping into does not rely on government. It doesn't rest in government. It actually rests on the people. So our job really is to help people to begin to make the necessary connections and to be able, with wisdom, to tap into the resources that are theirs and be able to then drive the economy. Because if we look at it, we celebrate collecting 2 trillion shillings of taxes. And that's tax on the people. But what that actually does is it's like it places a handbrake on the people from them being able to be more productive. Because most of those resources, you understand, go into the recurrent budget, which is for government expenditure, which is really paying for government to stay in place. That's not really going into development. So as a country right now, we need to be in a posture where we're looking very granularly, O'Brien, at development. How much are we pushing into development? And not just development, you know, as a general word in the world, but as what are we doing specifically to enable, empower, and structure people, private sector specifically, to grow beyond the current blinders that it has and step into things like what we're talking about. Now we're saying the world right now has a challenge with production of, for example, electric trucks. I started driving one of these trailers in 1991. I know I'm a lot younger than I actually look, but for over 50s, I consider that a place of pride. And I can tell you that even just driving one of those trucks,
an 18-wheeler.
Yes, between 18 to 22, between the Namanga border to Nairobi, it is a challenge. It's not that easy. People make it look easy. So as Kenya, we need to look also at our infrastructure. Our roads, do we have sufficient roads? Answer is not yet. We're on our way, we're well on our way, but we're not there.
It is still work.
We look at rail infrastructure, we just talked about it just a few minutes ago. We need to actually irradiate the entire country with rail infrastructure. Central Province province, for example, right now, I'm just giving it a general name, I know we have the counties, but the central area of Kenya doesn't have rail connections. We don't. And all the productivity from there, a lot of it sometimes just rots on the farms because it doesn't have access to markets. If we look at Western, we are still really using the colonial routes. We are not looking at devolution and layering that. And I can speak as an authority on that matter because I was the original architect for Huduma, which, O'Brien, you perhaps didn't know, in terms of getting access for services, of government services to the people. So we need to actually irradiate our transport and infrastructure network, not only road, not only rail, but air as well. We have too few airports in the country. Now, also, if you look at the transport industry in general, even the airline industry is transitioning to electric, which is another interesting phenomena, which is going to be catching up with us very soon.
Very soon. Yeah, I want to hear from you, Wendy. I mean, look, in 2012, you know, the country was very excited that finally we've managed to strike oil, and so the whole country, you know, was now clothed in high optimism that finally the petrodollars, you know, are going to flow into our country. 10 years down the line, we haven't heard so much about this. Being a person who has been in the upstream industry in this country, what really happened?
I think first I have to say that the cycle from finding to producing oil is usually a long cycle. It's not usually a short cycle. However, we could have done better in Kenya. But maybe first to give an example of what has been seen as very short cycle is when Ghana discovered oil back in 2007. But in 2010, they had a big boat floating in the ocean. It's called an FPSO producing oil at the Jubilee oil field in Ghana. When you come to the longer side, you could perhaps take an example of our neighbors in Uganda. Yeah. They discovered the oil in 2006, and it is now starting to look more certain that in 2025, 2026, they'll produce something. That will be 20 years from the time they found it. Ours is 12 years to today. We spent quite a bit of time doing the necessary scientific work of what is usually called exploration and appraisal. Once you find oil somewhere, you don't go into development immediately, depending on the kind of oil field you have found and everything. And Kenya is characterized by small oil fields clustered near each other, unlike perhaps, again, back to the Ghana example, the Jubilee oil field, which was one massive oil field. Now, when you have these small oil fields, you have to drill many more wells to find how the extent of this oil and all that. And at the same time, you also have to maybe acquire much more, it's called seismic data and other geophysical data to check this. So we spent quite a bit of time doing that. Just when we were done, I think the odds started to turn against us in that the international oil prices crashed. And when the international oil prices crashed, then the speed of our development slowed down. I guess our project would start to lose less economic, and that's natural. If the price of anything you're producing falls, then the economic benefit of your project will start to look low. And that sort of also slowed us quite a bit. Now we are back to the high price international regime. I hope that comes with as a I would say benefit in these guys, in that that could, and I expect it will, stimulate the provision of capital to the Kenyan project, and maybe we can produce just after Uganda starts to produce.
Well, I also want to hear from you. Having been the CEO of the National Oil Corporation of Kenya, and you know, having tremendous amount of knowledge, you know, on the upstream, midstream, and of course the downstream industry. When you look at our fuel subsidy program, Treasury says this is unsustainable. Do you agree with them?
I agree absolutely.
What should we do then? Because we need to shield our people.
The fuel subsidy, the world over, is a good socio-political solution. Because, I mean, you and me are happy to be fueling at 50 shillings less per litre today. However, because of the sheer volumes of petroleum that are consumed in any economy today, then you find that the state would have to spend extensively high amount of money to keep this going. Now, we've had producing countries withdraw subsidies. And I give an example of Indonesia, which 10 years ago, when Indonesia removed its fuel subsidies, people hit the streets and there were some massive protests and everything, but the government maintained its guns. And they just say this thing is not sustainable. And even at that time, Indonesia was a significant oil producer. I did not start with Nigeria because Nigeria sometimes is said to have its own problems. But Nigeria also had to withdraw subsidies at some point, again in the last decade, because they were causing some serious distortions in the operations of the industry itself, in the operations of the economy. It starts incentivizing people to buy local and sell externally. I mean, just today, Uganda is selling a litre of diesel at something close to 185 Kenya shillings. Now, right across the border, at Malaba or Busia, you can get the diesel at 140 Kenya shillings. What is the possibility that somebody is going to want to take advantage of the economic benefit arising from this? And those distortions that would come, I think in West Africa, they went up to people getting paid for subsidies and then continuing to export that fuel to the neighboring country and selling it at the international market price.
So you have a situation whereby we as Kenyans, we also subsidizing the oil that is being consumed in our neighbors.
That is possible. Why would I not fill my truck when I get to Bungoma and I'm heading to Rwanda? Why would I not fill it up completely so that the next time I need to fuel, I'll be back in Kenya? Why wouldn't anybody do that? And because this is in the fuel tank, there is actually no law that has been broken. Absolutely none, because I'm not exporting it, I'm just using it there. So that is possible. We are subsidizing these people, but I would guess a significant, very, very significant part of the subsidy is being used for the benefit of Kenyans. However, the bill, I saw the other day that the president signed 16-point-something billion to extend this for a month.
Shillings, yeah.
To extend this for a month. So when you try to extrapolate that into 1 year, it is higher than the Azimio government is offering to pay 2 million households 6,000 shillings per month. So you could ask yourself, should I do this or should I go down further and use this money for uplifting the social welfare of the people at the bottom of the pyramid?
But Kiilu, I mean, he has really brought the socio-political issues here, of this oil subsidy. This is definitely going to be a problem for the next government or for the next administration. And how do you expect them to handle these? Because, I mean, it's going to be a hot potato issue here, whereby you have a situation whereby oil was being subsidized, and so it was costing about 140 for diesel, 159 for fuel, I mean for petrol. But then you remove the subsidies and 50 shillings is added on top of that. How do you see the next administration juggling this issue?
Well, first of all, O'Brien, I think if we go back to the medieval century, time, horses used to draw carriages behind in terms of transport, and in order for them to do their job, they had blinders put on their eyes, so they could only see the road ahead of them. They couldn't see the fodder on the side or other animals that they might want to interact with, and that helped them go along that path. And Kenya for a long time has had blinders on, and we need to take those blinders off. What's the true size today of Kenya's economy? Last year as we came to the end, we were saying we are at 108 billion
USD
in terms of USD GDP. If you look at the cost of the subsidy, even if you were to take it, extrapolate it for an entire year, it's actually so insignificant. compared to the value of the Kenyan economy. I just looked at statistics the other day that said now we are actually being rated at, in terms of one of the types of GDP, at above 200. And that indicates that Kenya as a country is growing. Despite COVID, despite the challenges, we are definitely growing. So the subsidies, I think, yes, if you are to try and look at it granularly, historically, and this is why I keep on saying, let's stop looking at historical issues. We are where we are today, and we want to go somewhere tomorrow. So if, for example, the subsidy is going to enable this economy and Kenya as a state nation to leapfrog other nations, even the neighboring nations, we need to focus on our future, not the historical challenges or the historical costs. And primarily what's being driven and affecting Treasury and the pressure they're under and saying that it's not sustainable is not really the cost of the subsidy. It's because some fellows within IMF have told them by October you must stop this. And they've been given rules. So in actual fact, it's published in today's Business Daily. They're saying the authorities have said. Who are these authorities? O'Brien, we need to wake up, we need to grow up. But I'd just like to go back for a moment to what Mwendia was talking about in terms of the cost of production of oil. When you go to do exploration, and I've been to Ghana, some of the places that he mentioned I'm very familiar with, and Tema, and looking at what they're doing with gas over there. There's so many things in terms of that we can learn from the cost of production. But in Kenya, you know, what you were saying, our wells are disparate, and you have to keep drilling to check on this one and get all the statistics and seismic analysis and geostrata data and all that, and actually do your 4D propagations, etc. Do you know how much it costs to spud one well? It costs you $3 million. So, and if you want to go to commercial production, you have to do about
317 million shillings.
Yes, you have to do about 10 wells, good wells, in order for you to say I'm now at commercial production capacity.
So that's you're talking about
$30 million. Yeah, 3B. So now, and besides, oil is a risk. That's why in the US, it's only the Texans that are, you know, like to throw the big risks and gamble at oil. In Kenya, how many people are willing to take 3 billion Kenya shillings and throw it and not knowing whether they'll actually go and drill a dry well? So it means that the cost of production has been one of the reasons why it's taking a long time. However, if the cost of going into drilling and all that was taken care of, then we start having a very different conversation. We start talking about a different Kenya, and we can actually shorten some of those timelines and get faster to our reserves. Because if you look even at our coastal area, we sit on the Kimani Ridge. There's so much natural gas. It's actually the same Kimani Ridge that is extending Mozambique and Tanzania. And you can see them, the Chinese have already run after their gas. So we do have opportunities that we can actually look into. However, we need to become a bit more organized, specifically in private sector. Let's not disturb government for money and say, because that's not government's role. The role of government is to help us to steward what we've already brought up. So we as the private sector need to get into a position or a stance where we attract the global muscle, financial muscle, to be able to do the necessary. And without divulging too much, I can say we are already there.
We are already there. Gentlemen, before we come to the close of this conversation, I want to hear from Wendy Anyaga. So what should be the way forward? Because on one side, I mean, you need to operate within a certain physical discipline. On the other hand, you don't want to cause public uproar, you know, by removing some of the subsidies that you have, you know, put in place. Because honestly speaking, I mean, you know, there will be uproar. I mean, if tomorrow people are to wake up, go to the petrol station and find diesel costing about 190 and petrol costing almost 230 shillings. So what should be, how should we strike this balance?
I think we're in a catch-22 situation. Because number one is that we did it. And it was obviously helpful to the communities, to the people of Kenya, in that also the cost of petroleum does cascade down into almost the cost of everything else. But on the other side is costing what it's costing to the national coffers. So I think we might have a reprieve first from the international point of view, that whereas the prices will stay high, they might stabilize somewhere around $100–120 per barrel, and perhaps not go back to the 140. But that's only if. Yeah, this is already quite high. So I think we're also taxing the the petroleum products perhaps as much as we are subsidizing at the moment. So we're collecting as much tax as we are putting in the subsidy. So I think the policymaker will have to think on how do I continue to balance these two while I win myself out of the subsidy, but without having to hit the economy with one big bullet and start coming down. But as we go into the future, if you ask me, I would say the future of Kenya is green. We need to accelerate as much as we can production of the green energy. The Rift Valley is full of that hot rock below the surface and generates steam and hot water. We have warmth in a lot of parts of the country. And it can be used with new technology like the energy pumps and so many other technologies. We have the wind and solar. So we transition to the green economy and still produce our Turkana oil and export to the people who need it. We don't have to use it here. That will now earn us foreign exchange, while we have also transformed the economy to more and more use the electric energy, which will be green.
And I haven't heard you talk about, the master talked about gas in Isiolo County, as well as our offshore in Lamu.
Now, we seem to have some fairly complex geology. And I mean, the gas was found in Isiolo, and when they went to test it, they drilled further wells to see whether it's in good quantities for production. I think they found something negative. However, there is some gas which perhaps could have the potential to be used in the very local area at its current quantities. But who knows, somebody drilling a well somewhere nearby, using, of course, science, might find now significant quantities of gas. Our Kenyan coast, the whole of the Lamu Basin, as it is called, which has both onshore and offshore, has always given these mixed signals. Somebody drills, says, I have found oil shows. Somebody drills, finds gas shows. Then the other person comes and finds absolutely nothing. We know there's a well that was drilled, was completed earlier in the year by Eni of Italy. The prospect was looking very, very promising, I think, and also it was very, very large if it found something. But it was just unfortunate. Just like Woodside did back in 2000s, they also found absolutely nothing. So, and these are big companies who obviously know what they're doing. So we seem to have some complex geology, and somebody hasn't quite yet put a finger on what is the system that's working in the whole of that Anza Basin in Isiolo, and then going down to the Lamu Basin. I hope somebody will figure it out soon.
Finally, from you, I mean, what should we do? I mean, what should be the way forward? I mean, how should we cushion our people against, the severe impacts of the ongoing global energy crisis?
First of all, as Kenyans, and we love our people. That we can say for Kenyans, we really, truly love our people. And I think we need to keep on from that particular perspective. Love for the people, feed the people, ensure that the people are able to do what they need to do for private sector. We need, as Kenya, to have a global perspective. We need to stop being myopic. We need to stop inwardly looking for solutions. The solutions are not inside. The solutions are all outside. And we also have to have very advanced thinking and thinking capacity in order to harness the resources that are coming on board. So we shouldn't even be projecting for this year or October. We should be talking about 2023 based and mirrored against what is happening in the rest of the world. For example, O'Brien, are you aware that in 2023 the Lausanne Treaty, which was signed after the First World War, is actually coming to an end? What does that mean in terms of energy? It means, number one, that Turkey, which is the former Ottoman Empire, which collapsed during the First World War, what happened when it collapsed, they had to sign a treaty. It's called the Lausanne Treaty. And the signatory of that treaty is Turkey. Turkey is going to be relieved from that treaty after 100 years next year. Turkey, which many people are not aware of, has one of the world's largest reserves of oil. So guaranteed, the price of oil is definitely going to start going down because Turkey is coming online. They're already busy celebrating about it. If we just look at what is actually in front of our very eyes, Vladimir Putin, the guy who at the beginning of the Ukraine war was standing 50 feet away from his visitors who are coming to visit him, was holding hands just the other day with who? With the head of Iran and with Turkey, Erdogan.
Yeah.
So that already tells you what are the coalitions that are coming into place. Then Kenya needs to play its global role in terms of aligning itself to where, before we can do our own production of oil, who are the people who we can be able to negotiate with for good supplies. Because other people will say, no, we don't like you, but Germany and a number of other countries are still using Russian gas, even though the war is going on. Even though politically they're saying, no, we don't like and we're doing this, but at the end of the day, they're using their energy. So who are we not to provide the cheapest energy from any source to our Kenyan citizens? That's one of the ways that we need to start thinking. We need to be advanced. We need to be plotting the graph beyond 2025, planning for 2030, planning for 2040 and 2050. So a 100-year plan like the Japanese is not a bad thing for energy. And that's already happening in the private sector. I know that the country from a government perspective is looking at 7,000 megawatts. From the private sector, we're looking at 20,000 megawatts over the next few years in terms of electrical production. In terms of capacity for us to be able to drill and access our oil and gas resources, that's why we need people like Mwende Nyaga back in terms of the driver's seat. Give him the driver's seat, give him the keys and tell him to drive that thing properly, thoroughly. We have to become...
Did you pay this man to campaign for you?
We have to become, we have to become an aggressive nation. And I'm talking like now from a security perspective. One of the reasons why Kenya is on the front foot with security is because this is our attitude towards terrorism. This is our attitude towards crime and theft. We're very aggressive. Right now, there's no jokes. Even Al-Shabaab has reduced its level of attacks against Kenya. Why? Because it has people in security who are determined. And we have to become a determined nation as far as energy is concerned, as far as the economy is concerned, and as far as our people are concerned. Unless we adopt that aggressive stance and we go for the gold medal, then O'Brien, then we are just fooling ourselves. If you're waiting for somebody, I was in Mashinani the other weekend, actually just last weekend, and I had a chat with somebody and he said, you know what, I'm really not bothered about who becomes the next president, because I know that next year I will not be able to lift my phone and ask him for 1,000 shillings. Because one, I will not be able to access him. Two, he is not going to give me the 1,000 shillings that I might need on that particular day. So I know it's just me and myself who are fighting for the future. Yes, it's important, but what is more important is let's give these people who are on the ground an opportunity. In Ukambani, where I come from, we are still suffering from lack of things like piped water. We are still suffering from lack of electrical distribution. We are still suffering from quite a number of different things. So we need to, again, become a people-focused nation, but externally, outside there, let's forget about our local problems. If we are driving on the outside and gaining the economic value from outside, I think Kenya stands to be at an incredible point historically right now.
Very good.
And we're going to make it.
Very good.
Yes.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for your insight this morning. And of course, we highly appreciate your input and also coming through for us and sharing this critical information with us.
Thank you very
Asante
much.
sana. Well, we've been talking to Delano Kilu, security as well as policy analyst, as well as Mwende Nyaga, the CEO of Oil and Energy Center, joining us this morning to help us understand where we are going in the face of the enduring global energy crisis. You're watching BizTech. We are live from Broadcasting House, but I want to take you to Sheraton Hotel, where the African Union is having a meeting to discuss how to avoid electoral conflicts here in Africa. Let's get there.
The Electoral Commission to do its work. Having said that, I was to say that the office has a mandate to register political parties, in broader terms, to register political parties, to regulate and supervise all activities of political parties, and 3, administer political parties fund. Those are the 3 major mandates that has been given to the office. In this particular electoral cycle, we started with the RIGO reform, as it has been mentioned here, and the RIGO reforms were supposed to look at all the gaps that were there in 2017, and we highlighted quite a number of them, composed a team to look at the gaps, a multi-agency team that works from a different sector, including the Attorney General's Office, the IBC, the EACC, the Commission on Administration Justice, the Law Reform Commission, among others. There were about 11 stakeholders that are coming from government that sat in a task force to do the legal reform, which later was subjected to stakeholders' engagement. The first stakeholder was the political parties themselves. We have currently 90 political parties, one of them being a coalition political party that came as a result of the legal reform. So, but currently we have 90. So we subjected the law to the stakeholders, get a lot of feedback, and we improve, we continue improving, and finally we took the law through the process to Parliament. Parliament enacted the law. It became operational in February this year. Having been enacted in January, but operationalized, we operationalized on February 14th, 2022. Among the issues that we wanted to address, just in a nutshell, there were many issues. By the way, it was a major review to the Act to cross the gaps of regulations, the gaps of institutionalization of political parties, the gaps of supervision, and any issue that we thought was important. Highlight part of what we were keen about is the process by which nominations of political parties are done. There was no regulatory framework in this country on the nomination process of political parties, how parties should nominate their agents. Apart from saying that they come up with rules, and then they go ahead, there was no regulation part of it. Nobody was very keen on that. And we have always known as a country that when it comes to party nominations, we always used to have what Kenyans used to call shambolic. And shambolic because sometimes the rules were not clear. And two, because really there was no clear way of regulating the same and allowing the process to flow without especially bringing on board questions of violence. So some of those issues are the ones that we addressed in the reform. It was not clear before who are voters in a party nomination. Now in the amended law, it became clear that only party members are supposed to participate in party nominations. And it obligated the Office of Registrar then to reorganize the question of how people become members into political parties and then certify who is a member. According to the law, the Office of Registrar is the custodian of party memberships. But the people who recruit members are political parties. But to confirm that a Kenyan is not a member of more than one political party is the role of the registrar. And then, therefore, we are the custodian of the data. Currently, we have data of 24 million Kenyans who are registered as political party members in the 89 political parties. So a total of about 24 million. No, you are just about to ask, how comes there are more than the registered voters? I can see the question that you want to raise. Yes, they are, because one, it's not a requirement by law that you are a registered voter before you become a member of a political party. If you look at even IBC projection, they had projected to register about 27 million, about 27 million or so. For you to be a member of a political party, you only need to reach the age of majority, which is 18 years. So once you get there, and the recruiting agencies are many. IBC recruits its own people who become voters in the voters register, but parties recruit their own members. So the recruiting agencies are many, using various methods. The other issue in the party nominations was the openness part of it, which then party were obligated to declare the dates which party nomination will be held, and you cannot move the date unless you give another notice that you are moving the dates. And then the other issue that changed in a nutshell, so that I'm able to really quickly summarize what we have done, is that the method by which then you conduct the party nomination, you must declare that method. Initially, it looked like the only method for a party to conduct party nomination was only through the universal suffrage, and that was inhibiting its own nature. So in the new amended law, we brought about many other methods which party can identify. Electoral colleges became central. Delegate system became very central. Interviews, consensus building within the political parties, and then identifying your candidates and ensuring that you have taken through the process. The question of election boards within political parties was brought into law categorically, and the question that every party before party nomination you must have an internal dispute resolution committee within the party. And we ensured as an office that all the parties had elections boards, has also had the dispute resolution committees before the party nominations, and they have declared the dates, and they have also declared the methods by which they shall held, and the venue where the nominations will be held. And that ensured that the question of openness, and that any person wanting to know what to do then was able to be helped through the documents that were filed. The nomination rules, they were supposed to submit nomination rule to IBC, and then the Registrar of Political Party has to certify the nomination rule to ensure that they are compliant with the Political Parties Act, and then take to IBC for purposes of regulation of the nomination. And the IBC was supposed to approve the nomination rules. And as Masudi has said, 82 political parties submitted their nomination rules. So in spite of the parties being many, 90, only 82 parties were able to meet those deadlines. And one, I think, has dropped along the way. I think we have about 81 participating in these particular elections. So in a nutshell, the question of nomination, when that was addressed, the role of IBC was clarified, the role of Registrar of Political Parties was clarified through this amendment. And we have seen that particular amendment, the regulation part of it, brought down tension within party nominations. We saw the dispute arising from party nomination. Majority of them were resolved at the party level. That is institutionalization of the political party, that the dispute resolution committees were able to reason to majority of the cases. As per June, the cases that were filed for party nominations were less than 200, compared to what was filed in 2017, which was to the tune of 700. The cases that were filed in these party nominations were less than 200. They could be plus or minus 200. That means that there was significant reduction of cases that spill over from the political parties to court for purposes of determination. The other thing that the law focused, and which you can already see that is...
Well, that is speakers at the African Union meeting, which is taking place at the Sheraton Hotel, where they're having conversations around how to stop conflicts, during elections here in Africa. That meeting is taking place at a time when the country is in a countdown. We're talking about 19 days before we head to the general election, in order to put new officials or retain some of the old ones into the political office. Well, you're watching BizCheck. We have just concluded our first hour, where we were having a conversation around the global energy crisis and the impact this is having on the Kenyan economy, and how to cushion Kenyans from the severe impacts of this crisis. Our conversation is coming up next. We want to look at Kenya's economic as well as a business environment in the face of the ongoing political noise. Our guest is in the house. Stay right here. But for now, A well-deserved break is coming up next.
Time again. The city of Rabat hosts the returning glitz and glamour of the CAF Awards ceremony. You can enjoy the best of Africa from the comfort of your couch. Catch all the superstars and dazzling dignitaries celebrating the continent's finest footballers. Shot on goal!
Oh, it's a sensational strike! A remarkable start, a sensational start! Unbelievable goal! Aladour makes the save. Now a chance for the header, the goal! Would you believe this?
Senegal are African champions! Who will come out on top at the most prestigious football awards ceremony in Africa?
Do you have a news story to share with KBC? Get in touch swiftly on email news@kbc.co.ke or call 0723 892 654 or 0734 780 124.
Umefanya course gani?
I'm a computer engineer.
Computer engineer.
Yes.
Amesoma.
Sasa kama yeye ni wito, mimi ndio mama, mimi ndio papa.
One week to the wedding, msichana anakuja. Analia ni nini? Sipati kijana.
Unasema unaishi wapi kwanza wewe?
Kileleshwa.
Kileleshwa. Mimi nishikanyanga kileleshwa.
Hata unajua kileleshwa ni wapi?
Wewe mzee.
Mimi nilikuja na account nikafalisha mtoto yenu aolewe.
Sasa pre-wedding nani alienda nayo? Na wewe ndio ulikuwa treasurer.
Alikwambia anaitwa nani?
Brian Matisia.
Lakini amekwambia yeye ni nani?
Peter Musa.
Peter Musa.
Wewe mama.
Nebukadneza na Habakuku ni sisters. Basi hawa ni marafiki hawajuani.
Hawatakuona. Hiyo yote ni yako nayo.
Haya.
Kijana, he has broken the heart of my daughter.
Means I'm pregnant. You're going to be a father! What are you doing here? Gonzalo's just about to arrive. How can you tell me so blatantly that you're having a child with Noria?
It's normal that I tell you these things.
My children will adore you a lot more than their own father. And I certainly hope that you'll adore them in return. Your mother is the best liar you have ever known. Camilo is not your dad. Your dad is someone else.
We shall legalize weed.
Professor George Luchiri Wajakoya of the Roots Party.
Semeni baba kaya. Baba kaya.
Raila Amolo Odinga of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Party.
Unajua mimi sina pesa ya serikali ama ya kashfa.
David Mwaure Wahiga of the Agano Party. And
tunasema kazi ni nini?
William Samoei Ruto of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance. Presidential Debate 2022. Do not adjust your sets.
Have you seen my so sweet and fine like Jerusalem, ikayalami.
Let's talk about Martina and Tile. Hello, hello. I remember watching your videos a long time ago when you first started doing YouTube videos, and then Justin Bieber and Cardi B and all these international celebrities shared your videos. And then from there, everything changed.
Dancing, I've been dancing since I was little.
Wow.
But like commercially, just like, let me see, 4 or 3 years ago.
My baby, my Valentine. Can I hit the making what temperature is? If you leave me a good time, I swear you are like the oxygen and
Welcome back. You're watching Biz Check live from Broadcasting House, and time now to shift our focus to matters economy. You know for sure, in the last 1 year, the political noise has been rising in this country, and it has an impact on Kenya's economic as well as business environment. And we know for sure every 5 years when we go to the polls, the economy gets a hit. And this time around, is it going to be different? Well, we are watching to see whether things will be different this year. But all indications are that this time around things will be different, and we are going to conduct ourselves in a peaceful manner, vote for our candidates and elect the people that we want to elect, and then we go about our business. And we want now to look at Kenya's economic as well as business environment in the face of the ongoing elections or political noise. And joining us is a very well-respected businessman, Dr. Muljibai Pindoria. He has been in the business industry for more than 40 years. And he knows one or two things about business in this country, and he's now here to guide us and help us share his insights on where we are, how we are doing our things, and what we need to improve on. Thank you very much, Dr. Muljibai, for joining us on Biz Check. First of all, I want to hear from you. When you look at Kenya's business and economic environment now, what conclusions do you draw?
The businesses are affected with the corona thing which came here. Then again, every political elections are there. People are always trying to be safe, and even as a business-wise or security-wise and things like that. That is the thing which we are now facing at the moment. The competition has to be there all the time, but you know, when there is a fear or things like that, corona was a different thing. It was a natural thing, but businesses are affected. So many businesses have even gone down or closed. You might have heard some of the hotels in Nairobi have been closed. Things like that. And the economy, this has created the financial crunch in the way that people are not able to pay, and because of not having the business that they wanted to do. So that is where it is affected. But it is coming up. But then again, they are waiting for the election. What happens, who comes, and what policy they will create on that one. This is what people might be having. Because whether they've earned something for the years, they don't want to lose it for this short time or take the decision. That is, I can say about the businesses.
Well, and it's good that you're bringing in the issue of COVID-19, which really hammered, our economy. Some businesses went down. You're talking about hotels, like Hotel Intercontinental. They have never opened, and other businesses that have never recovered. And before we could even recover, then now we got into the political cycle, which also usually have a major impact on Kenya's business as well as economic environment. So how bad is it on the ground?
The thing is, the people who are standing for the election, they are doing their job. But the only thing I pray that the general public should listen to them, and they can vote to anybody whom they want. We don't want to restrict anybody. But the country should remain peaceful, and it should not be any thing or hooliganism or looting and things like that, which has been some time before. But I think the people of Kenya, they are getting more educated, more aware of the system, how humans should live, and things like that. For that matter, I feel that Kenya is day by day improving. The population as a whole is improving, and I hope this will not happen this time. But still, people are having that syndrome of the previous one, so they want to be there. This is what my thinking is. And for that matter, we have to be considerate to the general public, and those who are really fighting for the seat are not the people who are going to do this thing, but it is the people who are either following them or even not following, but they are used to this sort of things. This is what I feel the thing. But I think everything will go all right. and we just a few days we are there, so we just pray that everything will be okay.
You have been in business since 1959.
Yes.
And you have seen the Kenyan business environment, evolves with time. Would you say that things have gotten better, or they have changed for the worse?
No, I think change has come for the good. I would say that. Reason being, there were people who were not indigenous, who were controlling the business and industries of them. Many of the local people are coming into the business, which is a good environment. And if after Uhuru has been achieved, after the independence has been achieved,
in 1963,
if the local people are not getting their share, then it will not be right independent. So in many countries, we have seen that independence fruit has to go to the local people of that country. So that way, I think Kenya heading forward. Many trading companies or industries and things are being handled by the indigenous Africans, whether they are the owners or they are the employees there. They are doing very well. You can see at the banks and other offices, it's entirely run by the local people. That is the meaning of the independence. That's what I feel.
And what do we then need to do? Because, change is always good, especially if it is improving, the situation. And so, when you look back at where we've come from and where we are now and where we would want to go, what do we need to do to improve the business environment in this country?
The thing is, I would like the local people be encouraged. The indigenous people should be encouraged rather than bringing the overseas people and taking over the country as the economy. My feeling, sometime it comes, we were colonized by the British politically. At the moment, like other countries, what we see in Sri Lanka and the Zambia and things, the people who are rushing to our country to have the resources eliminated and things, they should not have this country as a colony economically. This is what my think is. So economy should be in the hands of the people of the country, and not to be overseas people should not take. Or if you are taking any aid from anybody, it should be from several countries, not from one country to colonize. That is my view.
That is your view. Do you think we are doing that?
I think we are leaning to some countries. We are not, but now recently I'm looking that we are taking aids from other countries, which is good. If we have to take, then we should split it to several countries, so one should not dominate us.
As if you feel that this is the case, and of course we know that in the last 9-10 years, as a country, we've really courted Asia for development assistance. Is this what you're referring to?
Yeah, it is not the Asia as a whole. It's one country from that area, which is even giving the problem to us as a traders or as a manufacturers, anything. Because they have a lot of money and they have good manpower. They are pouring their manpower here also. Other day you must have seen that they were selling the roasted maize and things like that. Smaller things, which an ordinary person in the country can do that. Why they should take over those things? Similarly, they are taking a lot of trades here. River Road, if you see nowadays, there are a lot of shops of them. They are owning retail shops. Now, retail shops should be always with our indigenous people. That's what my feeling is. So if the changes come on that nature, I'll be very happy to see that indigenous people are getting the chance.
But Dr. Pindoli, you know for sure that as an economy is growing, as it becomes more inclusive, and as you open your economy to the outside world, then you have more people also coming in as you develop more opportunities. You have more people coming in from different parts of the world, to become part of that process. So how do you create a system whereby it favors, the locals, and you shield the locals, from intense competition from the outside?
The outside competition should be in certain percentage. I'm not against that. Then people of local person, they are knowing the tactics or the business environment from them. And then that experience they are using by being employed by the people, by the traders at that time or industry at that time. That is fine. But there should be certain percentage of people of domination of the outside people. Majority domination should gradually start from before the independence. It was not there because the colonialists, they were having this thing in their own hand. I remember the days that we could only use building material when I'm in the building trade from that particular country, UK and things, and no other country's material was allowed. Now it is allowed from everywhere. So let them do it, whatever you feel good, you buy it. But still, the local people, external people, I'm not against the people coming from overseas or anywhere in the country, though I am originally from India.
Yeah.
So it is not that it's there. But the independence means that local people should have major share. And they learn from those other people, that is also fine. That is not the problem. But I think even the local people should treat them rightly, give them the position rightly, train them and see. Even if they are, it's a sea where if the local person is throwing a cup of water there, it will not affect him. But this should be the natural way of development. And I think since I'm here in this country from 1952, and the way Kenya is progressing, it's really progressing very well.
You see, when you look at some of the countries where I would say, we say that they are our model when it comes to creating a conducive business environment. They are our model when it comes to developing the economies. You always have a mixture of everyone, diversity in business, diversity in economic development, diversity in social growth. And so if you lock some people out, from doing business, then you're not likely to benefit from their wealth that they are bringing on board. So how then do you handle that kind of a situation?
See, that situation, for looking at an industry, if the industry is producing everything there, but some of the ingredients are produced by the small people, small industries. And many of them I'm seeing in the industry area, for example, juakali. Those things were in the hands of some of the people from overseas and things. Today, juakali, they are producing a lot of things. Although they are in informal sector, doesn't matter. But from there, the people are developing. Even the students are developing from there by making things not so quality-wise, but then they go to the industry slowly. I've seen some people there, and they are doing it. So those people who are doing as a professional, they have been pushed out, and the new people are coming, especially the young one. If you see in this area of Donham, Jogo Road and so on, I think they are important people even. They are feeding a lot of farmers and things, may not be so attractive product. Doesn't matter. Its purpose is served, which is very good. So from that purpose, they will keep on improving. For example, wheelbarrows. I am also buying the wheelbarrow from them and selling to other people, from the Juakali people. Doesn't matter. So that's all right. We have to encourage the smaller people to come up slowly. That should be the policy of every industrialist or traders or anybody, to encourage them and come up, because that is the way we are serving the nation. That's what I'm feeling.
And when you look at business policies, that are developed by the government, are you convinced that they are friendly enough to allow SMEs or small and medium enterprises to thrive and grow?
Yes, they are doing well, but the thing is, on the ground, the effect is not that much what they are talking on the laws and things like that, which should be tackled by the authority going to the ground, the effect and things, and keep on improving those things. They should do. But the thing in our country is different. If you have an influence with anybody, then you are benefiting more. That should go. And as far as the other people are concerned, I think there should not be any segregation of the people or the community or anything to do this thing. So they should support it, and the policy has to be. But it is the work where this is going to happen everywhere with the known people or relatives and things like that, which should not be the case. So hope that whoever comes in the power again, they try to look into it and try to just give to anybody qualifying for that thing, I'm not saying. But the problem here, even I'm feeling, some of the people are used to take something from bank or from anywhere and not to return, as if it was a loan or something. Even the students in the university, they are looking for taking something for nothing, not to return. So this mentality has to be created. But those mentalities can be even created by the religious institutions, churches, temples and things, to install. Going further to that, because in the United Nations, one of the things in Spain, I talked about it, and UNICEF had a meeting, that you cannot expect the government or United Nations or anything to do the law to harass. There are things which our religious institutions has to put into the people, they are following them, that these are the sin, you should not do it. These are the sin, you should not do it. Otherwise, if they have not done that, the abuse to the children, abuse to the women would have not been that much what is happening today. So there is a responsibility of the religious institution and the general public and the parents or the elders of any family or community to put into the people's mind when they are younger. You cannot put when they have achieved age of 18, 20 years. You have to bring them from the younger age, taking them to the churches and temples and whatever the religious institutions are. So this is the thing which I am feeling is lacking here. I have talked to some of the Christian people about this. Most of the people, they are just looking for their own position and collecting the money and this and that. But that should be the secondary. The first thing should be to install the culture of that religion. Because I believe in all religions are putting the same culture in a different way. Doesn't matter. But after all, we are saying God is one. So we are reaching to the God from different channels. That's fine. But we are not installing what should be installed in their followers. This is which we have to preach and things. There are a lot of many people who are doing that. But it's not reaching through the family. That is the thing. And family at the moment with this high education and things like that, family, they are throwing the children to the school and the teachers. But the first teacher is the parents. Then comes the educational teacher. Then comes the preachers of the religion and things like that. So that has to be understood by everybody.
And when you look at our taxation models or taxation policies, is there anything that can be done? Because when you talk to many SMEs, they will tell you that our taxation policies are somehow punitive to businesses that are still small and that are still struggling, to get through. What do you think needs to be done, in order to create a conducive environment for SMEs to thrive?
Yeah, I think so. But you see, the problem, what I am facing in this country, the taxation is being increased and all the time. But there is, even the prices of the electricity and water and everything is being, but there is no explanation on what base they are increasing, why they have to increase. We have not seen that. So there should be justification of increase of the things, including tax, why they are increasing. And then, if the question is asked, how do you spend development, fine. But we have seen the development, what they are talking, sometimes it is not there. What they are talking on the press or whatever. But this should be, I think, more should be explained, accountable and things like that, so that our country can have, the people, even the public can be satisfied by having the details of the things, what they are collecting or why they have increased the prices and things like that. That will satisfy the general public everywhere. I have seen many countries, Europe or even, they have the reasons for, they have to give the reasons for increasing that. So that is not existing in our country at the moment. They may be doing the parliament, I don't know. But the parliamentarians also, the way they are looking at this themselves is increasing their own income, nothing else, by way of salary and whatnot, sitting allowance and whatnot. Now that is, on the street, the people are dying of poverty, not having enough food to eat. And if the people who are ruling, they keeps on increasing, where are we going to fall in? The general person on the street or in the farms, in the villages, they are really suffering, I would say, at the moment. Suffering because of the poverty. And if they say there is no poverty, I don't think I believe it.
So, what do we need then to do in order? Because one thing is for sure, I mean, people must pay taxes for the construction of roads, for the government to provide security, to build schools, to build hospitals and equip them. And then on the other hand, I mean, you also have to be very careful, not to overtax people and subject them to high taxation, which will lead them to poverty. So how should we strike that balance, between collecting taxes and also taking care for the welfare of, the poor people?
Taxes has to be collected. It cannot be, but it should be on an affordable manner. But this can be avoided. I have seen the progress in India. It's a community, whether it's a village or a city. There are people who can afford to give something. They are sharing with the government. And so I have built some dams. I have built in Makindu here, Kambu area, 14 dams. I have grown, as far as the food is. Today I have read in the newspaper, the maize meal price has gone so high. I have doing this project in Makindu Kambu area. There is very little rain. Even the maize, you grow it, it will come here, but the grain will
eventually die.
Yeah. So I have given them I have done a project for last 15 years to grow something, millet, sorghum, and other things which grows with less than half of the water requirement for the maize. And they are now laughing today. And they're thinking, I did the same project in Barara, Uganda. I've done the same project. Now it's being done by here in Mount Kilimanjaro. So people are eating that thing now. Like, for example, in this country, 30 years back, very, very seldom people were eating rice. They were doing the maize grind or not eating. They have started eating rice. They have to change according to the environment what you can grow. So this thing is to be needed economically to do this, and so people should not depend only on maize. Very cheap things, and today people have started eating that thing as uji and whatnot, even ugali. The green grams which I am growing, one person told me that how can you cook it? I said, when you grow it and come out, or I have got the seed, let me tell you how to do this. You can do the ugali of it by mixing with the rice. So we have to change our food grain. But in short, what I'm saying, the public involvement in the government, what they are doing, will help the government, and they will also attract their things. So the schools, even my community at the moment is helping the schools where the toilets and the bathrooms and things are depleted, or adding the classes, doing that. A lot of people are doing. You must be reading there. But same thing, community should be also responsible, not throwing everything on the government. That government is not doing government. What is government? Government is, we are the government, actually. But whatever the government could, we can awaken them by talking to them or doing the things together, not only just talking. If we are together with them to support them to do whatever, and then we should do it. Government schools, even government schools are our schools, not government school. So if there is a little help required in the government school, we should come forward if you can afford.
I'm glad that you're bringing in that issue, because we have, become a society whereby everything is serikali saidia, serikali saidia, serikali do this, serikali do this. But, you know, as citizens of this country, I mean, and I like the fact that you're saying that we are the government, because at the end of the day, we as the citizens, we decide who are going to be in charge of the government, who are going to lead this government. And so what is the responsibility of us as Kenyans, you know, in ensuring that, you know, we are part of that delivery process in government?
Yeah, so what I feel that first we should see any person who is starving, for example, disabled person, whatever help we can give, whether it's a neighbor or community person or your relative, we should have a certain responsibility to look after them. For example, the old people also, when they can't do anything, we should have a responsibility. I have seen many families or people, their parents themselves, they are not taking the responsibility when they go to old. I think it's wrong. They have really, when you are young or since you born, they have looked after you like anything. Now, when you are leaving them when they are old, I think those are the people really starving, and they expect something, that when they have educated you and they have grown up and do this, when you are independent, you are just leaving them, which is a wrong thing. This is a community responsibility. This is one of the part the churches and religious institutions should put in their mind of the people. They should not live like that. It's a responsibility. Like they have taken the responsibility, you should also take the responsibility of theirs. When they are old, they can't do anything. Similarly, for the disabled and other people, without involvement of the government, whatever you can do, do it. When the government things come, support them and be one of them to help them partly. If you can't do it, you cannot help a whole country. But people around you can do. But if everybody does that, I think the country will be that one. This is a culture can be installed by the religious institutions.
So when you look at you know, the way we have been conducting ourselves, even the politicians, you know, are now talking about, you know, how to bring down the cost of living in this country, which is becoming unbearable to some people. Do you believe that there is a way that we can bring down the cost of living in this country?
That can be brought out by the way of reducing the taxes and importation tax for the, because we are more used to the imported things in this country. But not only that cannot be reduced, provided we produce something locally here, whether it's a food. And you know, we are what we are used to as a nation, imported things we are feeling it's better. No, the same betterness can be done here. Give you an example of some fruits here now, which used to be imported before. Today, our country is producing a lot of fruits in a quality-wise. So we support the local product. That will reduce the cost of living. And then more the people coming into their production, it will compete to the price. And so we should not judge the value from the imported foods. Even the local food is little, not that standard of imported. And they are cheaper. We should use that one rather than to encourage more farmers or more people to produce here. Similarly, for all the products which is locally produced, it may not be to the standard of the imported one. But still, we should encourage them to reduce that economy down here, which I think government should produce, comes with some policy to make the buy Kenya and build Kenya. That's the theme with what they were saying. But it actually is not on the ground being implemented so much.
And you're talking about, you know, encouraging, you know, the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya initiative, which definitely, you know, has ripple effects whereby, you know, it's going to create more industries. It is going to help in retaining taxes, you know, into this country, as opposed to whereby you have to export your, you know, your currency, you know, to other countries to buy things. And so then how do we inculcate that culture of Buy Kenya, Build Kenya, and tell our people, look here, there are benefits when it comes to purchasing locally manufactured products?
That has to be put. Again, I'm going to the general population of the country. That they have to be inculcated in their mind through whatever the media. And our people should have some feeling about the nationalism. to buy Kenya, buy Kenyan product. That has to be installed on the people, and we should discourage the people who are used to buy the imported thing as much as possible, not by beating or anything, but put in their mind, by buying the Kenyan thing, you are promoting Kenya for export and not only consumption. And we are exporting a lot of things from here. Fruits, we are exporting. Avocado, for an example. Today the people are growing like anything. And they are exporting. That is helping Kenya. And after having, it is not shortage in this country, that avocado is not available, but still being exported. That brings the foreign exchange and things like that. So that way it has to be inculcated into the minds of the people from the very thing, and that it should be on the way. By doing that, you are promoting Kenyan product and things like that. Similarly, the industries, as you said, which comes here. Now, for example, I'm quite involved with this agriculture thing. So the agro product processing is not being done here. Very few has been done. The rest goes out, or the big industries. Small people should do with a smaller machinery of that thing and do the thing there. So there are a lot of things which is not been grown here. Like there is a big use of the oil, which is not having the fat and things, which is being told by the doctor.
This is edible oils.
Edible oil. The particular I am talking is
virgin oil.
Sorry.
Virgin oil.
No. The thing which we eat together with food, and then oil is there.
Salad.
Salad. We put the salad on the. So that oil, it is not being grown here. We are importing. Even the fruit of that one is being imported. I studied that one in Libya. And it can grow in the desert even. It doesn't require more water even. I tried to grow in my farm in India. Olive. Sorry, I'm talking of olive.
Olive oil, yes.
So here, if the olive is grown a big way, in the area where there is less water and things like that, that can be done here and oil be produced here. And if anybody is having heart problem or anything, their doctors are recommending the olive oils.
So, and yesterday we saw President Uhuru Kenyatta outlining some various measures that are aimed at cushioning the most vulnerable in the society by reducing by more than 50% the price of maize flour, by also saying that in the last 7 months, the government has reduced electricity cost by about 15%. Also by saying that, various stimulus packages have been outlined or rolled out to cushion the people. When you look at them, are you convinced that those measures are enough to cushion the vulnerable in the society?
I have not gone into detail, but that how they are going to manage that one is very important. It's a good thing they have come up. But as far as I talked about the maize mill, we are used to maize mill much more. So we should also look for the substitute of any other item. The substitute of electricity also. Today the people are going to this, their sun, energy to take from the sun.
The solar energy.
Solar energy. So substitute of everything what he has declared has to be looked at from the authority. That has to be from the authority plus from the people. So solar is being rightly used at the moment. I talked about the green grain and the millet and sorghum and things. As far as food is concerned, this substitute has looked into. A lot of people are eating jimbi and things like that, which is the right thing, because we are dependent. With the change of the weather in the world, we may not have the maize production. Now, if he has reduced the price of those things, when there is a shortage of the maize, they will have to import. Now, that is, again, we are going to eat our foreign exchange. So we have to have the local substitution created from for those things which he has reduced. That's what my view is.
And then, I mean, we have become over reliant on imported things, and I'm glad that you are saying these. Yet, as a country, we can actually grow a lot of these things that we import.
Correct.
For example, you're talking about, the cooking oil, which has appreciated in prices by more than 150% in the last 6 months. Yet, the Kenyan coastline, the areas around Okambani, the climate there is favorable enough to grow and produce palm oil, which is used in the production of, cooking oil. We're also talking about importing things like maize. Yeah, we're importing a lot of maize from Zambia, from Malawi, from Tanzania, and spending so much money, on imports. Yet, as a country, we have some of the best, climates in this country. I mean, in this region, we can grow so much maize, in most part of this country. What we just need is just water. So how comes we are yet to realize these and take advantage of that?
Let me give you one example. Since I have been in this country, a lot of cotton was being grown on the western part of Kenya, and
Nyanza,
Eldo, Nyanza, everywhere. There were factories who were producing the clothes from there. Many, not very, very old, but 20, 25 years back, in Eldoret, in Kisumu, and everywhere. They closed. Why? Because people went for something quick earning, and they stopped producing the cotton. Now, today they have started doing it again. So the same factory in Eldoret and Kisumu is coming up. Now, these examples should have been taken by the people who are in authority and by the public itself. That the country to doing. In Uganda, more cotton was being grown. Today they have started growing again. So we become the thing in Nigeria. What I heard, when they got the oil, they left agriculture quite late, and then when they are now starving, they are now again plowing it.
They have now gone back into agriculture. And now they have become a major producer of rice. Yeah.
They should continue, and the cotton is still clothing. Most of the clothing we are importing.
Yeah.
Even the second-hand clothing.
98% of our clothing is imported.
Why should we import? The cotton has to be. That is also the economy of the country. So if you don't think on that line, the public cannot. But that is, the authority has to think on that line and give some subsidy who are growing. Encourage them. So this cotton is one part. Similarly, there are so many things. Just declaring the price, the more at the present situation, will be more importation will come in. Now, where is the foreign exchange? Today, even you want to get the $50,000 for importation, we are not getting from the bank because it's not there. To be very frank, I'm in the business. The price of 72 shillings per dollar was there for many years. Today it has gone to 118 declared, but you can't get it without 122.
Wow.
A dollar. Being a trader myself. So how you, by just declaring, and if you don't have the substitution to be help from the locally, then you are encouraging the importation. This is what my thinking is.
And when you look at our import bill in this country, I mean, and this is just a conversation that we were having here earlier on, we spend about 30% of our GDP, on imports. And so when you look, for example, at oil, we spend more than 1 trillion shillings, importing oil. Look at, even importing vehicles, and we import a lot of second-hand vehicles in this country. We are spending more than 200 billion Kenya shillings, on importing these things. Yet these are things that can be manufactured here. So because time is not on our end, so how do we then harness, the potential that we have and ensure that we ramp up the productivity in this country to avoid, exporting a lot of our forex?
See, this is the main thing what you're talking at the moment. But the life is becoming expensive because of when the dollar has risen, all the import bills are in Kenya shilling is risen. That is affecting the individual and every way. What I talk about the dollar price, when it was 72 and today is 122, it is going to go on the consumer. In between, whether it's a manufacturer or is a trader, he's not going to put it from his own pocket. So this is the life is getting expensive, and the affected people are the one on the grassroots level, more affected. Even the employees now, the teachers are asking 60% wage. It's too high, but they cannot. Even the standard what they declared in month of May for in minimum salary. I feel it's not enough for a person to live with a family and paying the children fees and so on. So these are the main thing. Again, I'm repeating that local manufacturing, local growing, and buy Kenyan and build Kenya is the main theme. This should be tackled very fast by the authority. This cannot be tackled by we have to educate the people, tackled by the general people, but some laws has to be there to restrict the importation of those things which are being manufactured here. Then people will get the price for them, and they are always in, there is a competition of quality and the price, which I am observing in the fruit because I am eating it every day. The new fruits, Kenyan fruits are coming up. Berries and whatever Europe is growing, they are started growing here. And even the one which is grown in Asia, they are growing here. One new fruit has come, dragon fruit. Have you tasted?
What is that?
Dragon fruit.
Dragon fruit?
Yeah.
Well, I find it very expensive, definitely, because
it's not.
It's almost 1,000 shillings.
No, it was. Today, if you want, just now, I can buy you at 300 shilling.
Oh, 300?
Yes.
One?
No, a kilo.
A kilo? Very well. I think I'll get in touch with you so that you can definitely show me.
Yeah, because this thing has come up very well. Some people in Naivasha, he has a big farm producing only dragon fruit.
Very well. Dr. because we have to come to the end of this conversation. Kenyans are going to the polls, on the 8th of August to elect new officers. What is your advice to those who will be voted in to office?
Those who are voted, first the voter should vote the person who is known to be a proper person, not involved in the corruption and things like that. He can serve the people, not going to the parliament or anywhere just to make himself earn something only. But he should be person going down to the people, helping them and doing this. That's one thing they should do. Those who are elected, they should be accountable and they should be serving the people rightly. They should think of Kenyan, how can they be brought from the grassroots level to up and up, not only thinking of the one class of people who are shouting for him or doing for him. This is, I think whoever is elected should do it, and then the Kenya can improve.
Very good.
The laws which they are voting for in the parliament should be the beneficial to the lower class of the people rather than only thinking of the big industrialists and things like that.
Asante.
Yeah.
Dr. thank you so very much indeed for spending the better part of your morning with us right here and giving us your insight as well.
Thank you very much.
Asante,
it was an opportunity for me to put my mind the way you asked. I may be wrong somewhere, some other people won't like it, but it doesn't matter whether they like or not. I have talked my mind.
Very good.
Thank you.
Well, Dr. Muljibai Pindolian is a renowned industrialist as well as a businessman joining us here to give us the state of the business environment as well as our economic position in the country or situation in the country. And of course, you have heard it from him. You have been watching Base Check live from Broadcasting House with me, O'Brien Kimani. We come to the end of this broadcast. Remember, Kurunzi Mashinani is coming up next with Timothy Kipnusu, and thereafter we shall be having our lunchtime news. My name is O'Brien Kimani again. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good afternoon.